Welcome to the Friends and Rivals podcast.
It's that tissue. Get the tissue off of there, and we'll hear the fart noise.
I'm not removing my tissue. Tissue? I barely know you.
That's it.
Billy
man.
gets it. Billy's laughing.
That's the show starter.
Let's talk Devils and Islanders. Let's talk Penguins and Rangers. But let's not talk about Flyers, because they're a bunch of fucks, which no one can deny.
Yes.
Well, I am back from vacation. It was a lovely week of no internet except when we were at ports. So I did have internet, but while we were on the boat, I didn't, and it was very, very nice not to have
What's the
internet access.
breakdown? Like, out of 24 hours in a day,
Yeah.
how long are you at sea versus in port?
So we started on Saturday.
Yeah.
We got on board at about 2:00 in the afternoon, and the rest of that day we were on sea, obviously.
Right.
How many times can I do this? And then the next 2 days were days at sea, and then back-to-back days were Tortola and St. Thomas.
So that's Tuesday, Wednesday,
Yeah, then a day at sea,
Thursday.
and then Friday we were at Disney's Island, Castaway Cay, and then we were home in port at 6 a.m. the following morning.
So really only the two and a half days, maybe.
Yeah.
Out of 7.
2.5
Wow.
out of 7. It was quite nice. Quite nice.
So it was good to be unplugged.
It was amazing to be unplugged. We got to take the kids to the place where we went on our honeymoon. Where I got to show them everywhere where my wife and I did it. It was really
they
awesome.
love that.
They did. But
Big
we
Ben
went to
Tubman?
we went to a particular beach called Koki Beach on the island of St. Thomas, U.S. Virgin Island. And that was
not virgin anymore.
It definitely was not. So Lauren and I went there on our very first cruise that we had when we were dating 20 years ago. We went back there for our honeymoon 18 years ago, and we got to bring our kids back there to the same beach, and it was really, really nice.
Wow.
Good nostalgia. Very good. And one of the things that we wanted to do was go jet skiing, because that's one of the things that we did back in the day. We wanted to take the kids and explore around the island on the water. So we did that. We rented jet skis and went out. Ryan was extremely guarded, if not scared, to go because it's Ryan. He's a scaredy cat, but that's okay. He's only 11. Hopefully he'll grow out of that. His biggest fear was falling off of the jet ski and going into the water. And I said, all you got to do was, we both had life vests on. I said, all you got to do is grab my straps, hold on to them. I won't go slow. I won't go fast.
Wait, are you talking about the honeymoon again? Sounds like
No. This is not.
You said 18 years ago. I said this to your mother.
Right. So he held on my straps. I said, well, I'll go slow, and everything should be just fine. He said, okay. So we start out, and we have a half hour on the jet skis. That's all we could afford because we didn't bring enough cash. It costs an arm and a leg to take a taxi ride from the boat to the beach. God forbid you wanted to get anything to eat at these places. It's another arm and a leg. And they all don't take credit cards. It's cash business. So we got a half hour on the jet skis. Ryan gets on, and we start out, and we're going, and he's holding on, and everything is great. I figured there's going to be 1 or 2, maybe even 3 points, or I'm just going to scare the shit out of him because I'm going to go really fast. It turns out he liked it. He was holding on. Everything was great. Awesome. We have about 7 minutes left on our time out on the jet skis. And I turn around to kind of look at where Lauren and Tyler were. And I turn around, and I'm almost at a dead stop.
And Ryan was gone.
And the jet ski tips over.
Oh
no.
We are both bobbing like corks in the middle of the Caribbean Sea. And Ryan is just absolutely beside himself, freaking out. And I'm doing my damnedest to just calm him down and grab onto jet ski that's capsized, and there's like a step bar that folds down, and I told him to hold on to that. And he's like, "Fine, I'll hold on to that, but I gotta hold on to you too." So he's holding on to my one arm, and I got my other arm. And Lauren's coming up, and she sees that we're capsized, and she just stops and stares at us for a good, I don't know, 3 to 4 minutes. And I finally just start screaming at her to go and get help from the guy who was high as hell at the jet ski stand who took our money, to go get him so he can come out and help me, uncapsize the boat, or the jet ski rather. So I yell, and Ryan mistakes that for me freaking out. So he starts to freak out. So I got to calm him down. And we're just both bobbing like corks out in the Caribbean Sea. The whole ordeal lasted maybe 10 minutes, but Ryan was so scared. The guy came out and jumped out, and he was able to flip the jet ski. He took Ryan in first. So I was just sitting out there with the jet ski, and at that point, Ryan went in. I knew he was safe. And I'm in the middle between islands in the Caribbean Sea. I know there was nothing going to happen. So I just took in the scenery, and it was gorgeous. And he came back, and we both went in. But
there you go.
That was a huge memory maker. I don't know how else to put it for Ryan, who may never, ever jet ski again.
Safe bet. That's a safe bet.
Yeah. Yeah. And if he doesn't, that's why.
So now, do we get a slideshow now?
No slideshow. Sorry, Bill.
Fucking people.
Wait, you want a slideshow of what? You wanted a slideshow of Lauren and I
Vacation.
Years ago?
Yeah.
15 years ago.
Whichever. What is this rated today? What do we want? We want
No, it's
parental advisory on this
unfortunately it's rated PG. Unfortunately, maybe we'll do one where we'll review all the things that we did on our honeymoon. Maybe, but we got enough about vacation.
That's the episode our fans want to hear.
Yeah, I know. But we got hockey to talk about, man. The Stanley Cup was finally awarded after 6 months of just the final between Edmonton and Florida finally wins in Game 7 to win the Stanley Cup for the first time. There was a lot of hubbub about the way ESPN kind of handled the cup presentations. Did you guys have any issue with that?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You didn't see him lift the fucking cup.
I know.
One thing you want to see.
Well, in their defense, he fucking ran away. But I guess you got to
have multiple cameras.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm trying to defend him. I just can't. They really do.
I mean, they did a good job with having a camera always on the players while they were lifting the cup, and then while they're doing interviews. So it wasn't like they're cutting away too much, but they stayed on it for quite some time. I mean, previous years, it's been like, they'll do it for a little bit, and then they just cut over to like NHL Network or something.
You don't need to see the guy being interviewed.
You don't.
When
You're
that's
exactly
happening.
right.
You don't need to see the guy.
Put in the mini box in the bottom left or something.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Yeah. I mean, as the captain of the team that wins the cup, you know that there's going to be pyrotechnics behind where they present the cup. Don't you want that cool picture of you lifting the cup in front of the pyrotechnics and then go skate around?
I don't think they're thinking about that, man. There's too much going through their brain at that time.
You're such a nerd photographer. That's why.
Yeah,
that's why
exactly
you're thinking of that.
I think you're right.
You are a nerd.
But I thought it was weird.
This might be the case. You are absolutely true. This might be the case.
I thought it was very strange on the approach with. We all knew, we were pretty sure that no matter win or lose, that McDavid was going to win the Conn Smythe. I mean, broke a Gretzky record, most assists in a playoff series, and was just a monster in playoffs.
I thought Bob was at least better than third.
I agree. I thought he'd be second, but he really shit the bed in his 3 games in the finals.
Those 3 games changed everything. Yeah,
but McDavid was held pointless in 6 and 7, and they lost.
But he broke those records, man. I mean, what are you gonna do? I agree. Barkov probably should. I don't like the fact that you get it when you're the losing team. I didn't like it when
Jean-Sebastien Giguère.
Giguère won it.
The greatest Conn Smythe winner in the history of the NHL.
God.
What are you talking about?
That fucking
and then obviously, like, the way they handled it with ESPN was that they just panned to the crowd when obviously McDavid wasn't coming out, which is so strange. Like, the whole scenario was strange. Like, couldn't they be like just anything else but shots of the crowd, like out of nowhere? We're like, is he there? Is he not there? Like, you're not telling the audience, the people watching.
What do you want to see him bring the Conn Smythe trophy out and then bring it back? Like,
I would rather see Bettman sit there looking around like an idiot than looking at random people.
Not difficult.
But
would you say that if the game was in Edmonton, McDavid would have come out to accept the trophy?
So I heard two things on this.
I don't think so.
Two things on this. One, way too much time between the end of the game and them presenting the Conn Smythe.
Steve, they got to set up the pyrotechnics. They got a lot to do.
Well, if the guy's not going to fucking stand there for the picture, don't set up the pyrotechnics. It's that easy.
Well, Fuckface had to get his gloves out of the plastic bags.
Oh, yeah.
Two, and I actually just heard this today or yesterday. McDavid was going to come out, but he saw how upset and hurt and crushed his teammates were after losing, that he just didn't think it would be right for him to go out and kind of negate their emotions.
Yeah, who could have expected them to all be sad?
Well, Giguère came out and accepted the award, didn't he?
I don't think he ever left the ice.
But the teams didn't leave the ice then, right? Didn't the opposing teams stay on the ice at that time?
No.
For that part?
But
no, they were already off the ice.
I think they got him as they were leaving. I think somebody probably said to him,
McDavid was the last Oiler off the ice. He waited like Stamkos did when they got eliminated. McDavid was the last Edmonton Oilers player off the ice. And somebody should have
said to him before he even went into the locker room, hey, don't go into the locker room. Don't look at your teammates crying. Stay here. We're going to give you this piece of useless trophy since you didn't win shit.
Or are they going to say it just like that?
Yes.
Don't go in the locker room to see everybody crying.
Don't see everybody crying. Here's your participation trophy.
Oh.
I mean, Giguère looked like someone killed his dog.
Oh, yeah. No.
He accepted the trophy. I think he touched it and then
just he skated. I think he carried it off.
I think he carried it off, yeah.
Maybe he carried a handler or something. I don't remember. Oof. That was brutal.
It was bad. And look, Paul Maurice saying what he did to the cup and all that. I thought that was pretty cool.
Those are cool moments.
Yeah, it really was. And he's a great interview. He showed a lot of
personality. Yeah, he showed a lot of personality.
I like him a lot. Yeah, no doubt. I like him a lot, and good for him. And listen, congrats to the Florida Panthers.
Something that nobody said at the NHL draft.
Well, did they not? And well,
nobody
that's actually
congratulated the Panthers. It's a story. I don't know why it's a story. I don't know.
Because every year, that's the first thing everybody fucking says. It's a little annoying. So
I skip that part so we can get this fucking thing over with.
I think at the beginning of last year, when we were making our picks, and I
had Florida, if I remember.
The Panthers were coming off of winning the President's Trophy, and we all had them winning the Cup. And there was Bill. Every year, somebody picks the Florida Panthers to win the Stanley Cup, but it never happens. Well, it has now happened.
That's a good.
That was a good bill. I've been practicing. Well, a week and a half. I was practicing.
That was good.
And they finally won. And they finally won. Now we can stop hearing Billy say that. There's no point to the story. I just wanted to remind everybody.
You just wanted to do your bill. Don't you worry. You just wanted to do your bill impression.
I wanted to remind everybody what Billy said. That's all. That's all.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. My time's gonna come.
Well, no, you have an elephant
that's
memory.
Okay. That's fine.
Not that you're an elephant, but you have a memory of an elephant. Did the Mets do something magical that you're cheering?
The Mets have scored 5 runs in the 10th inning to take a 7-2 lead.
They did the same thing yesterday. They almost fucking blew it.
But
don't worry, they'll let up 8 runs.
Why don't you both fuck off? All right? We're not talking about that yet.
But before we get to the NHL draft, we have to finish up the season and talk about the awards that were handed out. And there was no real big surprises, maybe other than McKinnon winning the Hart. That was
surprised me.
Holy hell!
I thought Kucherov had that. I thought
You thought
Kucherov had that in his
Kucherov-
back pocket.
I think all of us
Signed,
were
sealed,
thinking that.
delivered. Yes, we
Yeah.
were unanimous on that. And not only did he win that, right, but he also won the Ted Lindsay Award.
Right.
So, I mean, did he really have that good of a year?
It was a good year. Very good
He
year,
did.
man.
He's a solid fucking player. I get that.
He did. I just felt like Kucherov, like with how many points he blew everybody away by, the stat about how many percentage of the
Yes.
goals that of Tampa's were, part, due to in some way part of his like goals or assists. I mean, like all those stats were just dumbfounding, and Tampa would have been nothing without him. And so that's just why I really thought, it would be he was a shoo-in. But yeah, I mean, McKinnon had an MVP type, MVP worthy season for sure. So I guess enough voters, thought that it should go that way.
You said it, Bill.
I think we had a toss up with the goalies, right? Hellebuck. I there was no argument from anybody about that. Bedard, yeah, great. And Quinn, right?
Quinn, yes.
Yeah.
Quinn Hughes won the
Correct.
the Norse. Yeah, exactly. Why don't they have that on NHL.com? They have a picture of
like the whole
everybody
thing?
else that won. Yeah, they have a picture of everybody else that won something, except for him. That's a little odd. Huh. Oh well, who cares? But that will put a wrap on the NHL season for the 2023-24 NHL season. Look, it was a great season. It was a fun season. Well, for me. I don't know,
Yeah,
Steve.
for
Steve
you.
didn't have very much fun. I
I
Yeah, I
didn't
don't
have
like it
very
at all
much
either,
fun.
frankly.
Like, the three of us were not thrilled this season.
At least you made the playoffs, Nick. You got to be at least psyched about
One of the
that.
most stressful
deserve to be in
seasons
the
I've ever watched of the most up and down team.
They deserve to be in the playoffs slightly more than the Capitals.
Ugh.
who neither of those teams really deserve to be there. It's just
Yeah.
teams like Detroit and Philly just blew it.
But now it's on to bigger and better things for the next NHL season, and that happened at the start at the draft. Look, there's only going to be one, maybe two guys that were drafted. And look, the first round of the draft happened when I was on the boat, and it was, I saw some of it, but I didn't see really any of like the first half. So were they saying anybody but Macklin Celebrini, who was obviously the number one overall pick by the Sharks? Is anybody else in this draft going to be in the NHL next season? Or is anybody talking about that? Even the defenseman for the Blackhawks? Yeah. Because Celebrini is without question going to be there.
That's tough. I don't know if this is that kind of draft where you're going to see many of those guys. Macklin Celebrini could even be he could come back. He could go to college this year and then come back next year.
Yeah.
He might not play this. He could. He has to make the decision if he's going to turn pro or not. Now, I mean, he's obviously going to be a pro, but we'll see. If anybody, he's obviously the guy.
But they didn't win the NCAA tournament, obviously. But he was third in the NCAA in points. He won the Hobie Baker Award as a freshman. I mean, what else has he got to prove? At this point, yeah, but is he there for a national championship, or is he there to get drafted?
Look, he had a great year, and he probably loved it. He might be looking at like one more year with all that fun, or go straight to the pros, because it's going to be there. And it just depends on what he wants to do.
He can make money as a college athlete. He can make money.
Yeah.
So maybe not as much, and you don't get to your second contract as quickly if you slide a year, obviously. But
Yep.
You know?
And it's not like the Sharks are going to be, winning a ton of games next year. I mean,
What are you talking about? Barkley, Goudreau, Tyler Toffoli. What are you talking about?
yeah.
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 Yeah. Still not at the cap floor. Yeah.
I mean, look, Celebrity could be like, you know what?
They
They're
need a
losing a
defenseman?
lot. They could be. He could look at the team and say, "Do I win another? Win the NCAA championships, or do I go and also potentially be a Hobby Baker winner again, or go lose
Can you
50,
say
60
that again?
games?"
Can you say that
No, I'm not
again?
gonna say it. No, I'm not gonna say it again.
NCAA double A
NCAA double
and the Hobby
A.
Baker. I want to win that Hobby Baker one of these days.
But look, you're the number 1 overall draft pick.
He can do what he wants.
Yeah.
You're going to the NHL. Sorry, unless you're that guy from who was that guy from the Sabres who didn't?
Owen Power.
Owen Power, right? He went a year in college.
Yep.
But defensemen usually take longer anyway, so I guess
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
It'd be interesting to see. This guy's ready though.
I think he was 18 though. Power. He was right out of high school then.
Oh, he didn't start. That
he
was
might
his
not
freshman
even
year.
had a year of
Oh,
yeah, he was 18. He was straight out of high school.
right, and they got that other kid from Boston College, Will Smith, playing in San Jose too, right? So I don't know if it's Will Smith. Is it Will Smith?
It is.
So I'm sure they're chomping at the bit to get both of those guys in their lineup just as soon as possible, for sure.
I mean,
but Will Smith is staying for another year, but the other guy is not. It was Perot, Will Smith, and I don't know who the third guy was on that line, but I think he's not coming back next year. But as far as your teams, the Rangers drafted a Keandre Miller, kind of a copy of Keandre Miller, literally. And from the development camp that they had today, there was a lot of comparisons to Keandre Miller and how he's playing and how he plays defense. So I'm sure he'll help us in the next 4 to 5 years. I can't wait.
That was a very awkward point in the draft, to be honest. When
Why?
they look at him and they just go, his direct comparable is Keandre Miller. And I'm like, you had to pick the one black guy. He's really, this is the comparison. This is what you decided to say.
I might say PK
Keandre Miller
Subban
in New York. They just drafted a kid. They just look at him. They're like, Keandre Miller. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. That nobody thought that was a bad idea. It just
maybe go
like
back and see who Keandre Miller was supposed to be like and use that guy.
It was PK Subban.
Anybody else?
It might have been.
No, I'm kidding.
Might have been.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
At that point,
I said
probably was.
I said the
Probably
joke
was.
louder than Billy did. That was all.
Well, if he turns out like Keandre, I mean, that's fantastic for you.
Yeah.
That would
The
be
30th
a
pick.
wonderful thing. That would be a wonderful
30th pick
thing.
of the draft.
Devils, did they have an opportunity to pick Yzerman or even
They did.
Iginla's son?
They did. Not
And they
again,
passed on him.
son. He was taken, I think, 2 picks before, but they had a chance to get Cole Yzerman, which I would have wanted. But Yzerman wound up really sliding down the draft very far down. I don't think he got picked until the late teens or early 20s.
20.
Yeah.
20.
He got picked 20? Jeez.
By the New York Islanders.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's right. That's right.
look
So
at
we'll be
that.
able to see this mistake for decades to come.
Yeah.
Now,
Now,
the defenseman they got though is a fucking 6'7" physical, should be stud defenseman. That's what they say. This guy actually slid down the board too, and he got to 10, and they were like, we can't pass up the chance to get him.
a
and
lot
he's
of
gonna kick
teams
Rempy's ass.
had
So,
him. Well, a lot of preliminary draft
Yeah.
lists had him as number 3 overall.
Yeah.
So
Well, it was.
he
It says he was number 2 on Essential Scouting.
2, 3.
What
that was kind of
Might-
a lot of team. Yeah.
2 European or 2 overall.
2 on Essential Scouting's midterm list in January.
Okay.
It says.
Yeah. He was 2 and 3, but with the other kid that went number 2. overall to
So they
Ducks.
couldn't pass him up. They just I guess they just felt they couldn't pass him up. So he's
I don't think
still
you'd get
over
much
in the
offense from him.
KHL. He's over in the KHL. I think he's got 2 more seasons on his contract. Just gotta hope again. You really roll the dice when you take these KHL players in hopes that they come over after their current contract.
And maybe that's why he slid, because he's still got 2 years.
There's been a lot of that. You know what? I'm going to just sign one more multi-year contract and then I'll come over. And
That's
who wants to
tricky.
wait 6 years for your draft pick to even come over to North America?
That was what happened with Sorokin.
Islanders traded their 18th pick and still got Yzerman.
Maybe they felt like they knew those 2 teams weren't going to take him. Yeah.
I think Chicago really wanted.
I
think Chicago wanted that center.
Well, that happened before the draft. That wasn't during the draft. That was a pre-draft trade.
So it was.
Okay.
Oh,
yeah. So they didn't. Isles were standing pat. I actually thought that the Isles could trade back again to get more picks, because that was the trade. It was they got 2 seconds to move up, so they ended up getting an extra second and basically being able to supplement the missing third rounder. Yeah, we didn't have a third rounder. We didn't have a third rounder this year.
That Lou traded away.
Yeah, exactly. So
the only other thing of note was trading up in the second round. Trading John Marino for John Marino and a 5th for 2 seconds this year and next year, and then drafting the highest rated North American goalie was a little bit of a surprise. So it'll be interesting to see how this goalie develops.
There was a lot of goalies in the second round. Holy crap!
But I don't know. I guess there was some Europeans first, and then this guy was the top rated North American. So it'll be interesting to see how he develops. It was a little bit of a head scratcher at the time because they still had Schmid, who would eventually get traded, but that Fitzgerald always has a plan.
Bill, you're awfully quiet during the draft. Yeah, no first round picks. In the second round, got that guy with the skates. In the third round, another guy had a helmet and shit. So
were they invited? So you guys weren't even at the Sphere since you didn't have a first round pick.
No, I don't think so.
Right, that was
they got it. They got invited. They were there. They were there. I was kind of surprised on how much shit that Butchiegrass took on social media about how bad the announcing was and what a bad hosting job he did. I was kind of surprised with that.
It's the
draft. I mean, yeah, exactly. Unless you're like TSN and you, I don't know. I don't know that ESPN can beat TSN.
I watched the whole thing pretty much, and to be honest, they're kind of doing their thing while the draft's happening around it. And it's not like the NFL where they're getting every single draft pick 2 minutes beforehand in their ear. So it's kind of they don't know what's going on exactly.
You gotta scramble a little.
Yeah. Some of the picks they did figure out or we're kind of thinking it was a certain person, but it's a crapshoot. You don't really know. There's so many players in the draft and people move around and every team has a different look on guys. It's not as cut and dry as something like the NFL draft, which is or the NBA draft, which are typically snooze fests because every single guy in a row and their needs.
Well, they're on Twitter 10 minutes before the pick happens.
Yeah, exactly, that too. And they're getting phone calls ahead of time. They know who's being called, who's calling who. But the trades, we're not seeing much happen on the floor. It wasn't one of those scenarios where they have to walk the trade stuff to the table. They're doing everything electronically or calling it in. But even then, they weren't really focusing on the GMs. They were on the phones because all of a sudden it'd be trade,
The trade horn.
Yeah, the trade horn, which was funny. It interrupted Bettman at least once. It was really funny because that was great. We have a trade. Stupid ass. But it was. I mean, I don't know. I didn't really care for the commentary because they're doing their best. Who cares? They're trying to do interviews. They're trying to do weird. The one thing that was strange to me was they do the interview with the parents sometimes and the kid on a couch. Like they like these two couches, one with the person interviewing the player and their parents, and with the parents it's kind of awkward because they can't hear anything, so you can see them leaning in trying to be like, huh. Because it's loud as shit there. But I gotta say, that was one of the coolest of drafts I think I've ever seen.
Just because of the setting,
the sphere, and the setting,
the venue, yes,
and the way they had everything, where it was all like, it wasn't, how they normally do it. The players are all like center ice normally, and they walk down to past the bench to the tables and everything. But it seemed more streamlined, and that whole big thing, they could show so many cool stats during this stuff. It was neat. It was
and
really cool.
having the stage right in the center of all the tables was really cool. Yeah,
it was cool. It was nice.
If other leagues need to have their drafts at the Sphere, I mean, that place is set for that type of event for sure. I definitely wanted to touch on the venue.
I think the NBA could do it. The NFL,
even NHL. You don't think I think the NFL would love to do it in Vegas.
If they did, they'd have to do it. Like, is there enough room outside? Because they have like that. They usually like to have a ton of people like outside.
Oh, the NFL draft, The NFL draft's got to be outside. They usually have 250,000 people there.
Yeah, like a shit ton of people there. It's just too much. I mean, if you did it, I still don't know they could do it that way.
The NFL draft is in April, so why couldn't they just do all that stuff on the outside of the Sphere?
Is it big enough for it? I don't know what it looks like on the outside.
I haven't been that close, so I don't know.
Good question.
Yeah, so I don't know. Some of the other things were kind of hokey. The Michael Buffer thing was hokey, but I thought the venue was spectacular. Yeah,
Bruce Buffer.
Whatever.
Or not Bruce Buffer.
I mean, it's not a bad way to go out.
Michael Buffer.
Michael Buffer. Bruce's brother. His brother. Not his brother. Not brothers? I don't think Bruce is actually his brother. Are they brothers?
I don't even know who Bruce Buffer is.
He's the announcer for the UFC. He's
I don't know who any of these people are.
Oh. Michael Buffer. Let's get ready to rumble.
Yeah,
that guy.
And this guy named Bruce Buffer. I don't think he's related. He might have chosen that last name because he's like a announcer, but he's like it's time. He does the whole thing and announces the guys at the UFC events. You don't watch it, so you don't know what I'm talking about. Look up a UFC announcer.
That was good.
Bruce Buffer. Yeah, he's got catchphrase and everything.
So next year, no big hoopla in terms of the draft. It's going to be everybody at their home arena or wherever they decide to host their own draft party.
Yep.
So that was it.
And what?
And they're just going to go from location to location to location when they announce the picks.
What? So the commissioner's not going to have one central location? He's going to be in his office or his house, or what is he going to do?
Yeah, who knows where the commissioner will be? Who knows? Maybe at the NHL offices.
All right. That's what they want to do?
That's what they're going to do.
All right.
Well, that's what the NFL's like rooms do. They don't have.
Right, they're not at the they're not at the draft.
The commissioner's there to introduce them to the NFL.
To be honest, I don't know what those guys all around the tables are doing either. There's like 12 people, and they're all just staring there, and they don't say anything or do anything. They're all just the scouts. That's it. But like nothing's happening. It's weird. Yeah. Like you're like they're not like talking to each other. Like, hey, we want this guy. It's just like they're all standing there, and I'm like, are these people actually like making decisions, or is it like who's making the decisions?
They got free trips to Vegas. That's all they care.
They're just not talking. Like you figure they'd be all looking at like they can't do like their list and stuff like crossing shit off like a normal fantasy draft would be. So maybe they'll do that in the war room style thing they do moving forward.
Was the awards was that at the Sphere as well?
Didn't even watch it.
I didn't either. But all right, and then that brings us to a lot of things back to back on this on this nutty little week that the NHL had. Right, present the Stanley Cup Final, then you go to the awards, and you go to the draft, and then bang, it is now free agent day.
Now, and we're going to start. Before you go into that, during the Cup, right during the Cup, when they were giving the Cup around, they interviewed the GM for Florida, and they were
Oh,
like,
Bill, yeah, Zito, he cried.
Zito, and
He's
he's
like Mark Messier crying. Jesus
yeah.
Christ.
But other than the crying, they asked him, "How are you going to reset your mind for having the draft and July 1st? It was like a week ago, right? It was
Yeah.
last Monday.
It's the 24th. Yeah.
He literally started answering the question and then just started to zone out like, holy shit,
Like
the
it.
draft's in like 4 days. And he literally sat there for like 10 seconds, not saying anything. And then finally was like, it's a lot of shit, or whatever he said,
But do you know why he didn't give 2 flying fucks? Because he didn't have a pick until round 3.
Yeah, but it's so much to study,
And
get
they
ready.
had a trade to get it.
He had to party for like the whole night and then go immediately back to work for like the next 2-3 days they had to hammer out the Reinhardt deal and all these other guys. Who are they going to prioritize? Plus the draft. I mean, that was a lot of shit to go.
Just under the gun to get it to the 8 years. At like 11:59:59, they got that contract in. But we're going to start free agent day with, I think, the team of all of us that won that day, and that is the New Jersey Devils. They pick up a good, solid defenseman in Brett Pesce. They signed, I think, an underrated player in Brendan Dillon. And they just got more physical and a little bit more tougher all around on free agent day. So, Steve, go ahead.
The Brendan Dillon one was good and bad. I think they overpaid at $4 million a season for 3 years.
3 years.
And he's going to be 34 by the time the season starts.
Oof.
Yeah, it's 3 years though. It's not
3 years, but takes him to 37. Now you got a 37-year-old defenseman. Now the contract is heavy, is front weighted. So I'm guessing, on that back end, if he's it's a lot easier to trade him in his age 37 years. So, but like you said, physical guy, that's what the team needs. Pesce, not really a physical guy, but a superior defender, certainly compared to who they had last year. Definitely compared to who he's replacing in John Marino. John Marino just had a terrible year last season. Great on the PK. Going to pair him with Luke. It's nice now. Every defensive pairing has an offensive guy and a defensive guy. So it's nice to see that balance has been reestablished to the lineup. Other than that, Stefan Nason was a really good depth signing. You know me, I hate retreads, but in Nason and Tatar this year, getting them both back, I don't hate it. Nason definitely learned a lot, I'm sure, in Carolina, is going to bring that valuable experience to this young team. And Tatar, when he was on the team 2 years ago with Hischier and Mercer, that line was one of the best lines in hockey. So if you can reunite them and then put Bratt and Meyer with Hughes, that's a really solid top 6. Now they just need to get Mercer signed. He's still RFA. They might have to move out a couple people to free up some money to make that happen. But like
they got about what, 4.5, almost 5, something like that in cap space.
They got 6.76, and that was before the Tatar signing. So I think he was like 1.25 or whatever.
They're under 1.8.
Okay, so they're right at about $5 million.
Yeah.
So again, between Bastian and McDermott and DeSimone, those 3 guys, that's enough money to clear up where you can get the Mercer deal done. Whether Mercer goes bridge deal for a little less, or you lock him up long term, that remains to be seen. Coming off of last season, he really didn't do himself any favors not playing so well going into a contract year. But I'm RFAs always get done, so it's going to be a solid top 6.
Yeah, and we didn't even talk about the probably the biggest move the Devils made in the offseason thus far, and that is their goaltender in Markstrom.
Having a solid goalie in Markstrom definitely wasn't a bad trade at all. That was the guy they targeted, during the season. So it was nice to see them circle back and actually get him. I mean, he was the one everybody wanted, and they got him. So that's huge.
But you think they missed out on a couple of snipers? You think they missed out on a couple of those wings that they could have paired with?
I mean, come on, they were
with Jack.
they were rumored to be the leaders
and with everybody, they were tied to literally everybody.
I don't. It was a gut wrenching kind of morning to see them be in the mix for both Stamkos and Marchessault, and then have them, everybody going, well, we can't possibly get both of them. Nobody could sign both of them, and then to see them both go to Nashville, who automatically vault themselves to the third most hated team on my list.
We'll talk about them in a little while for sure.
And the fact that they were able to keep Saros as well. It's mind-boggling what they're going to do with Askarov. Because you drafted him first overall, right? Or first round, early in the first round, wherever he was picked. To have this guy not even now get a shot because he's 8 years. He's not going to sit around and wait for 8 years. So that's a valuable chip that they have in their back pocket to use as a trade bait. But I don't know. I'm looking forward to the season. I mean, if the season started today, like I said, you got a solid top 6, and you got a bunch of people on the Panthers going, "What the hell? We just won the cup. How does the season start already?"
They would absolutely 100% be saying that for sure. We'll move over to the Pittsburgh Penguins. And look, I think that the Penguins offseason, I think we didn't expect to see fireworks here, Bill. I think what we expected to see was a lot of little moves, and I think that's exactly what the Penguins did, was do a lot of little moves.
Yeah, they definitely are not any better, but they don't look like they're significantly worse than they were at the end of last season. So they re-signed.
Is that a good or bad thing?
I kind of, it's just kind of what I expected. They're not going to make a move that is going to sacrifice any kind of pipeline talent. They're just looking to kind of build that up. The one thing that I thought was kind of sly and kind of a very interesting move from Dubas was when he did well, Steve hates the word trade when only when assets only go in one direction. So the quote unquote trade, where the Penguins just took Kevin Hayes and his $3.5 million or so contract off the Blues' hands, and in exchange, the Blues also gave them in exchange, quote unquote, the Blues gave them a second round pick, and just for the trouble of overpaying Hayes, who is. That's only half of his salary that they're paying, because the Flyers are still paying half of his salary from the ridiculous contract that they signed him to a few years ago. Like, when everybody in the league, when the whole NHL did a spit take, and they're like, you fucking signed Kevin Hayes for what? Anyway.
Well, that's like Gary Suter, right? Suter's getting paid by the Wild and the Stars next year for whoever he plays with next year.
Yeah. Well, anyway, fuck the Flyers, by the way.
Fuck the Flyers.
But yeah, so they picked up Kevin Hayes, who, just a veteran 32-year-old forward. He's not bad. He just doesn't play up to the contract that he has. But then they turn around and they ship out Riley Smith, retain a little bit of his $5 million salary, 25% of that. Send him to the Rangers, and also again pick up another second round pick and a fifth round pick. They've really made a nothing move. They've got the same caliber player playing for them. They're saving $200,000 next season for whatever that's worth, and they picked up two second round draft picks. It's really not all that bad. Smith, I think has more upside than Hayes does at this point in his career, but he certainly wasn't, showing himself to be a top 2 line talent for the Penguins. So, it's just kind of an exchange of third liner guys for them. So that was pretty good. And then, they picked up a couple other guys, and Anthony Beauvillier on the cheap, a defenseman called Matt Grzelcyk. Maybe I'll learn how to say that name this season.
I really hope you don't.
I really hope
you don't. I really hope you don't.
There's no vowels in his last name. What the fuck is wrong with that guy?
There's an E. It's Grzelcyk. Come on.
And Blake Lizotte from the Kings, and I wasn't familiar with Blake Lizotte, so I did a little Google, and I go, holy shit, Blake Lizotte's a hot blonde, and Google thought I was looking at Blake Lively, so I went back in and retyped the name. Damn it! And I go, holy shit, Blake Lizotte's a fat black lady, and they thought I was going for Lizzo. So I eventually got it right, and he's a little guy, but like interesting. He's like a 5'9", penalty kill guy. Third, fourth line guy who's averaged like something like 12 minutes the last few seasons, but always like a plus like 11 to like 14. So I'm intrigued. I mean, the guy seems like he's going to be a one of those players that makes him tough to play against, even though he's little. So I'm looking forward to seeing what his game brings. And obviously they could use the help on the penalty kill. So nothing that's significantly going to make the Penguins aren't going to be a playoff team, flat out. But like, this is nothing
They
that's,
would they would with
them,
Blake Lively.
not
Or
gonna make them
Lizzo,
significantly.
or
Lizzo
in
playing
net.
goal.
Lizzo
Yeah,
in
Lizzo's in
net.
goal,
playing
yeah,
goal,
I'll
no
take
doubt.
that.
They also
I'll take that
signed
over Jarry
Sebastian
for sure.
Aho. You forgot.
Oh,
No,
yeah,
no,
sorry,
not
don't forget Sebastian Aho.
not that
Not-
Sebastian
not the
Aho.
good one.
Ah,
Not the
I
good
can't make
one.
that joke anymore.
Well,
Not the
actually,
good
the guy I'm looking forward to you pronouncing this year is Bokanje Imama. Is that his name?
That was
The guy that they got from Ottawa?
I missed that one. I don't even know.
Really? He's a 27-year-old left wing that he played with Ottawa last year. Bukanje Imama. BOKONDJIIMAMA.
AHL player. He's
Yeah,
not
but
Nick.
So a white guy then, right?
he played with Ottawa though last year. Oh, he's what?
Wakanje Mama.
No, he's not. He's not a white guy.
Oh, okay.
Not even a little bit.
Hmm.
Not
Right.
even a little bit. So Les, I can't wait to hear you pronounce him next year.
See if he cracks the starting lineup at some point.
We'll go to the New York Islanders next. To like the Declare signing, I think is for whatever reason, I think it's just going to balance you guys out a little bit.
Yeah. When we harking back to the a few weeks ago when we did the the UFA preview. I had Duclair as a guy I'd like to see on our third line, amongst other guys that all signed for different things. DeBrusk signed for like 5.5 million or something to Vancouver. Great for him. I don't know if that's going to be exactly the money. It's too much money for the Isles, but and then I think Chandler Stevenson, is that the guy said? No, William Carrier. William Carrier is the other guy I wanted to see.
Yeah.
But those guys didn't pan out. But we got Anthony Duclair. That's great. I think the speed he can bring. Many have said the same thing that should help the Isles because we need the speed, and having guys that can set him up may be really good. There's talk that he could play with the top line with Horvat and Barzal, just because they need guys to play with. They got this more speed to play with. I don't like it. I don't like him on the first line. I like him on the third line or second line. I think he'll be a tweener, personally, but we'll see how it goes. Maybe he'll just find a spot in the lineup. They signed for 4 years, so typical Lou, keep somebody nothing shorter than 4 years, that's for sure, on any of his deals. But outside of that, we re-signed Mike Riley, which for 1 year, 1.25, great little deal for another year of Mike Riley. I really was hoping we'd re-sign him, and he wouldn't hit the open market. He hit the open market, obviously, but he came back. He gelled really well with the team, and was kind of really a good, something we really needed in terms of his puck moving ability, and just was really solid D. And so he's really took over Sebastian Aho's spot on the lineup, and obviously Sebastian's not really happy with being the seventh guy another year in a row. He definitely I'm sure factored into his decision not to come back to the Islanders. I'm sure that they looked at him and to see if he'd come back, but he wants to be at least a sixth defenseman somewhere. So with Mayfield coming back, they have their top six right there. They also re-signed Kyle McLean. I think we talked about that a couple weeks ago, though. I can't remember how long ago it was re-signed, and that's pretty much it. Isles really have no cap room. I mean, there's no ability to move things around. I talked about a few weeks ago about trying to get rid of Pajot and his deal. He's got 2 more years of $5 million. Islanders leaves 2 more years of $7 million. They really didn't seem to find a buyer for Pajot, and now that Duclair is there with the Islanders, he played with Pajot. He'll probably be a line mate to start the season. The gelling of the team thing is, it's just Lou's not going to break it up. He seems like he's happy to keep the team really tight and see where it leads us, which will probably be another disappointing, trip to the 8th spot in the playoffs again if nothing changes. But that's just my read on it. There wasn't going to be a lot of movement of any kind if we didn't, change up something, a buyout or a trade, and none of those happened. So nothing else to really report on. Unless something else happens, it's good. This is looking like the lineup. The only question marks would be if Cal Clutterbuck's going to come back another year. I don't think Martin's. I think he's retiring. I don't think he's going to come back. Cal could potentially come back another year, but realistically, there's not enough room unless they decide to trade Oliver Wahlstrom, which is a possible, trade they could do to send him somewhere as like he's just not working out here, or try to find somebody like someone on a different team that similar scenario, just, different, try to send him, excuse me, send him to a different place to see if they have better luck. But I don't see how that's going to really fit him into the role. If they do that, if they sign Clutterbuck again for another year or two, that would mean that Holmstrom would have a real hard time cracking the lineup with the current group of forwards. So we'll see how it goes, but I'm thinking that they'll probably tell Clutter and Martin that, sayonara.
Time has come.
As for your President's Trophy winning New York Rangers, defending President's Trophy winning, not a lot of moves to be made, other than Sam Carrick to a 3-year deal at $1 million a year, and 2 really kind of like under the radar moves today with Casey Fitzgerald and Beau Giroux. They did make a trade for Riley Smith, as Billy mentioned early on. Good luck with that 27 draft pick. I mean, you're basically replacing Barclay Goodrow with Riley. That's really all you're doing. And there was a lot of talk about maybe Patrick Kane coming back and Jacob Trouba being traded. None of that materialized. The Jacob Trouba thing is really fucking weird. I mean, they put Goudreau on waivers just to clear his cap space, in hoping that somebody would take him. And I think they knew that San Jose was going to claim him. And Mike Greer and Chris Drury are very close. So I think they kind of knew at least somebody was going to claim him. And I didn't think Barclay Goodrow was going to go unclaimed for what he did. But if you're replacing Barclay Goodrow with Riley Smith, I mean, what are you gaining? You won the President's Trophy with Barclay Goodrow, and he provided offense and grit in the playoffs with exactly what you needed. Is Riley Smith going to provide the exact same grit and the offense in the playoffs that Barclay Goodrow did this year? Because if he did, then it's a wash. Why even make the move and spend more money you're not spending more money on Riley Smith. You spent more assets now on Riley Smith. So the whole thing doesn't make sense to me at all. And the Jacob Trouba thing with his wife and why he did his no movement clause for so long, so his wife can do his residency. The residency would have been up at the end of the no movement clause, but since she delayed her residency by a year, now his no movement clause and her residency don't line up, and now Jacob Trouba has to stay because of his wife. I don't understand how that's a hockey issue. I get that it's a Trouba family issue.
It's a hockey issue because his wife was attacked by hockey fans on social media.
That's a different that's a different story.
Well, that's why it's a conversation piece.
That's stupidity to begin with. You don't go in what did she do? She delayed her residency 1 year so she can have a baby. What the fuck are they attacking her for?
Yeah, whole thing. whatever.
The whole thing is really stupid.
Listen,
But the hockey portion,
decision.
of this shouldn't involve Trouba's family kind of at all. As bad as that sounds, it shouldn't. It should be this trade's on the table. This team is not part of your 15 trade, no trade list. See ya. Bye-bye. Goodbye. That's it. The whole thing to me is really strange. Really, really strange. But here we are. We're going to have Jacob Trouba now next year be our captain with this whole thing hanging over his head. I kind of don't know what to think of all this. It's going to be a very interesting start to the camp with all these questions, and having this kind of hang over his head the entire year. I think is the best thing to do to move him now, but you're not. Trouba's going to be here, and he's going to be in the lineup. He's going to make $8 million a year, and he's going to be your third pair defenseman.
Thought I heard there was no chance he was starting the season on the Rangers roster.
Yeah, I heard that too. And then Larry Brooks now saying, oh, he will 100% be in the Rangers lineup next year. So whatever happened with this whole Detroit thing really screwed everything up, and he will be part of the Rangers' future next year. Because I can't see, I just don't know. I can't see how they move him now, and how this thing just doesn't blow up and become something that it never should have been. I don't know. I thought Drury does a better job of keeping things like kind of under wraps and not letting these things get out about who he wants to trade for or what kind of business that he runs behind the scenes. And to let this kind of leak out is kind of, I don't know, leaves a little bit to be desired, in my opinion. But without moving Trouba, you now have Trouba on your cap next year for $8 million and being a third pair defenseman. And you don't have the opportunity to improve your team anymore, unless you're looking to trade a Filipino or a Capo Caco, and get that whatever, $7 million to try and replace them with maybe a Tarasenko or whatever is left over in the free agent market, or try and go after somebody in a trade. So I kind of called it at the end of last season. I think the Rangers will go through a retread and do this whole thing over again and kind of see where it takes them. They're going to have about the same amount of cap space this year that they had 2 years ago. They'll have about $4 million worth of cap space if nobody gets hurt. Well, actually, that's what they would have had this year if Hedl didn't get hurt. But Hedl did get hurt, and they couldn't accumulate all that cap money. So they were forced to do what they did at the deadline. But even though they couldn't accumulate it, they still had them on LTIR, and they still used that money. But we'll see. They're gonna just go back with the same lineup, and
you won the President's Trophy.
Sam Carrick as your fourth line center, and have Riley Smith replacing Barclay Goodrow. But
still don't have anybody on that wing.
This is your 2024-25 New York Rangers. Yeah, you do. Riley Smith. That's who they're going to start the season with.
The top line wing.
Riley Smith. He's going to start at the top line. That's your guy.
So, like I said,
that's
you still don't have anybody.
I couldn't agree with you more.
And, he wasn't productive with Crosby. He wasn't productive with Malkin, but
Tarasenko is still, Tarasenko is still out there at, how old is Tarasenko now? 33?
Yeah.
34? Probably somewhere in that range. I don't know what the number is off right at the top of my head. But, I mean, he played for $5 million last year with Ottawa. Wasn't overly productive. If you can trade Capo Caco and find a way to get him in here for $3 million on a one-year deal, I think that's probably your best move, your best opportunity to improve and solidify your top six, and use some of that money to bring up Brennan Hoffman to replace Capo Caco on the bottom six. I think that's your best possible move to improve the offense and prove the balance of your team. Whether that's going to happen or not, I don't know. But professionally speaking, because I have a microphone in front of me,
yes,
that's what I think they should do. That's what I think they should do.
Splendid.
But the whole fucking thing is just really weird. And Trouba's going to get blasted next year if he doesn't play well. And it sucks because he's not going to play well. And it's going to be a distraction all fucking year.
He's going to take cheap shots, and now it's not going to be Ranger fans coming to his defense. They're going to be criticizing him. That'll be interesting.
I hope that happens.
Oh, it's go, please. If he's still on the team, it will happen in the first 10 games.
Well, I hope it does. Um,
Can't wait.
can't
Can't wait.
Can't wait. So some of the things that happened, I think the night prior or the morning of July 1st. Let's go through some notable signings. Reinhardt at 8.63 over 8 years. It's really good fucking value for Florida. Really good. You guys all had at Gensel at around $9 million. I thought he was going to go a little bit more than that. And you guys were right on the money. 7 years with the Tampa Bay Lightning. Are they better or worse?
I don't like that signing at all for Tampa because it cost them Stamkos, who is the heart of the team, center, one cups with them, and they let him go to sign a guy that's basically not as good, in my opinion, just younger and doesn't play center.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't really get it, to be honest.
In 2 or 3 years, Tampa might be a little better off. Like Stamkos is the better player. Stamkos is the better player, and probably will be for another couple of years. Like toward the back end of that deal, if they have Gensel instead of Stamkos, Gensel's younger. He's going to be productive probably a little bit longer, but it doesn't make them a better team in the next year or two. And if Tampa's seriously thinks that they still do have a window for the cup, it's the next couple of years. It's not at the back end of Jake Gensel's contract.
So even though Stamkos got 4 years, $8 million a year from the Predators, you don't think he would have signed for 7 over 4 years? Or 6 over 4 years? And I think Tampa would have been better off for it. They would have had more cap space to do other things. I don't know. I kind of agree with Nick. I don't and Bill. I don't like the move either for Tampa. I really don't.
It's the same money. It's not like it's different money. It's just the more years you're giving out to a right wing.
And the expectation now that Gensel's going to be that guy, he never had to deal with that in Pittsburgh. Like now they're going.
I don't think he's that guy. I think Kucherov is still that guy.
Oh yeah, no, I understand. I understand that.
But you sign that free agent contract, you're expected to be.
Yes,
I agree. Agreed. I've seen enough of them. Yes.
Yeah.
And if they think, he's gonna, his best season, he had like 40 goals, 84 points, Gensel. Like you think automatically you're gonna put him on Kucherov's wing and he's gonna be a 100-point guy. It ain't gonna happen. I mean, he was playing with Crosby when he put up those numbers. Like it's not like he was playing with a fucking bum, like it's I don't see him just exploding in production.
If he puts up 35 and 40, it's not really living up to the contract. Right.
It's gonna be tough to live up to. Yeah, it's gonna be tough to live up to that contract.
Well, Gensel's left wing is Kucherov a right wing or left wing? I can never get that fucking straight. I think Kucherov is right wing. So are they going to be a one trick pony with one line and that's going to be it? That's their team.
It seems like
then it's going to be fucking Anthony Cirelli and Logan Paul. I know Logan Paul's not his name, but I mean, is that going to be it? Yeah, sorry, my bad. But it's that's going to be it. So they're going to be it'll be a one trick pony, and they used also money to re-sign Victor Hedman to a contract that'll make him a Lightning for his career. Yeah, that's for nice. Sure.
He signed for the same contract that Stamkos got. That's the funny part to me.
I agree. The big news of the day, I think, came from 3 teams, right? The Predators, obviously, with Marchessault, Stamkos, Brady Shea. They drastically improved their team. Drastically. Although trading McDonough back to Tampa and then signing Shea, I get Shea's a little younger. McDonough is definitely a better player in my opinion. They could have stuck with McDonough at about, I think, for less money. But whatever. Also the Seattle Kraken. Seattle Kraken made a couple of pretty decent moves with signing Brandon Montour, Colin Stevens, to name a few. They definitely improved their team, and they made a couple of trades also to improve their teams. I don't have that in front of me, but I think they improved their teams, and fucking The Coyotes of Utah. Holy crap! Did they drastically improved the Arizona Coyotes franchise and now the Utah Soakers. They're a playoff team. They're a playoff team.
I don't know if we're going that far. I don't know if we're going that far.
You don't think
We'll
the Sergachev was the other guy that they got?
Yeah.
Sergachev
Kraken.
and Marino
Were
the two.
What was
two,
it? Was Kraken?
two trades.
No, Utah.
No, Utah.
Utah.
That was,
Right? Utah. Yeah.
They traded for Sergachev and Marino in those with all the picks they had. I mean, it was smart. They have too many picks. They have a ton of prospects. What are you gonna do? Eventually, you guys started making some moves and getting a guy like a Sergachev, who Tampa was against the cap, and we thought they were gonna use that money to sign Stamkos and Hedman, and obviously we saw what happened there with Stamkos leaving. But hey, man, that's a 26-year-old defenseman, just year 1 of 8 signs with the Lightning, and then gets traded to Utah. I don't know if that's a pretty crazy move if you think about it. Like, he's been with Lightning the whole time, signed a long term contract to be there. I mean, he had to waive his no trade. Oh wait, his no trade kicks in 2027.
Yeah, didn't kick in. Yeah.
Didn't kick in yet. So he obviously knew it could happen, but damn, man, like,
You don't
he
expect
immediately
it.
becomes.
You don't
That
expect
doesn't-
it.
yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah, now he's a Russian in Utah, so we'll see how that goes for him. But he's definitely the number 1 defenseman there, and that's a huge upgrade for them. Marino's obviously getting additional NHL caliber players on the roster was huge. Those are the two big things. But they made some other moves, but I think that's really, no one's going there to sign yet. They're gonna wait and see on Utah. And it's okay because they still have a ton of cap space. They still have some guys that'll be UFAs next year, and they'll have space, additional cap space, and see what happens. Maybe everybody teams, they start to pull people in because they find out after a year that it's a good place to live.
Good place to live. They treat you well.
Right.
Word
It
does
takes
spread.
time.
Yeah, I mean
It
word
takes time
does
to
spread.
build that. So, and there's winter shit there. There's skiing and shit. People, hockey players may want to do that when they can. Not that they can do that during the
Ice
season,
fishing,
I guess.
and
But
yeah.
but whatever. I want to talk about Nashville though, because we kind of briefly.
Fuck them.
Come on. I thought.
Go
they had
ahead,
the best-
Nick.
I thought Nashville had the best day. They had all that cap space, like 20 million, close to, I think, the 20 to 30 range, whatever they had. I forget now. I can't look it up now on Cap Friendly because it's too
Yes, you
late to look
can.
at now.
It's they had. They don't
No,
anymore.
had.
They have
Yeah,
they have no
free.
cap space right now.
They have 0. They went from like one of
Yes.
the top. I talked about this because a few times. One, because in the Money Talks a few times, was basically they had they shouldn't have made the playoffs, right? They were in a rebuild year, and they just somehow just were good, and they just won and made the playoffs. And they had all this cap room, they had all these draft picks. They were literally set up for a scenario where they could basically draft a bunch of players. They still have 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and 3 thirds next year. They got a shit ton of draft capital next year. All their draft picks for the next 2 years after that. I mean, their future is set up real well. And then they go and obviously Barry Trotz running the show as a GM goes and somehow manages to get Stamkos to come over, sign, Marchessault to sign, Brady Sedgy? I can't say that guy's name.
Brady
Shea.
No, keep saying Shedgy. I like that. I
Shedgy.
like that. That's a good name
Shedgy.
for him.
Yeah.
Shedgy.
Now, McDonough might not have wanted to stay there. Who knows what his deal was, why they traded him. But either way, they trade him out. They get Shea. And that's like 3 pretty large pieces to come onto their team. On a team that was, a fringe playoff team. It's gonna make them a lot better. And of course, I'm a big fan of the stars and scrubs kind of, scenario where you have a few guys that are, make the stars of the team, they're making all the money, and you bring in the veterans that want to win, bring in the young guys that are hungry. I think that's the best way to really, win in the NHL. And they seem to be falling into that. They don't have too many big deals that are like, going to keep them strapped for cash. The only big problem they had was Ryan Johansson. They had $4 million of the dead cap for one more year for his deal. When they traded him, they ate some of the cap, some of that cap space, and then they have Duchesne's buyout for 2 more years, and
Kyle Turris. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
it's $7.5 million this year.
And then that's another 4.2 on the dead cap. So the next year goes away.
11.75 in dead cap this year. 11.75.
Think about that. And in 2 years, that'll basically be gone, and they'll just have about 3.5 for a couple of years of dead cap space from buyouts. But it's a lot of dead cap space that they're not even going to use now, but they'll be able to use in 2 years. And then when we talked about it, was, they won't need that cap space right away, but all of a sudden they do, and it's crazy. It's just they just shot they shot their load immediately, and they got their guys they need. But even with that, they don't have too many UFAs next year, and they'll have a couple. I think they have one guy as an RFA, Luke Evangelista, who could be a guy that they have to spend some money
Cody
on.
Cody Glass got arbitration rights.
He's 25. He doesn't have a ton of, I don't know if he's a guy that's going to break the bank, but he'll probably come in probably 3 or 4 at most, but probably 3 from what it looks like. I could be wrong, but either way. And to top it off, they signed Saros on extension, and I don't know. That's an interesting one because, like Steve was saying, that they got this kid that they drafted, last few years ago in the first round as a goalie, Askarov, and what happens with him? He's a guy that could just be traded off. I mean, who knows? Or he's not going to sit behind Saros for all these years. So more trades probably happening. I think they were the big winner though. I think them and I think Florida did really well because they didn't lose too many pieces. I think Mondor is going to hurt, but also they didn't want to overpay Mondor. They didn't want to overpay who's their guy they lost? Wasn't Lomberg I'm thinking of, but it was a different guy.
Well, they're gonna lose Lomberg probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the point being that they didn't. If you look at what like Tampa did, Tampa had overpay on some of their guys after the Cup wins, and I think it was a wise thing not to overpay on Montour, but pay for a guy like Reinhart. Reinhart's the guy you want to 57 goals, 4th in Selke nominees, and he played really well, obviously, and I think his contracts really benefits them, and it really sucks because they're in Florida and there's no income tax, so he could take that less money deal thing and
So let's freeze right there. Got to fix that situation. How do you address that? It's not even. It's a salary cap, but it's not a salary cap.
Oh, you're talking the whole non-state tax thing?
Yes.
Your take-home pay. Your take-home pay. It has to be your cap hit is your take-home pay.
That's what they've got to do. So right, I mean that's the change they've got to make.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know,
but that changes every year.
It's not going to change the advantage though. The guys will still make more money. Not
if it's your take-home pay. Your take-home pay is your take-home pay is your take-home pay. So New York and New Jersey can exceed the cap by 30% because that's the tax rate for those guys.
It's gonna be weird. I don't know if you can make that work.
They'll fix that as soon as they fix a cap in the playoffs, or whatever it is. Whatever the team you field is your cap hit. They'll fix it as soon as they do that. I'm trying to find that other player that Florida lost, Nick, and I can't figure out who the hell it was. And
I'll remember in a second. I'll look it up. It was Oliver
Ekman Larson.
Ekman Larson, right? And
Yeah.
the Panthers did also. It says that Lumberg went to Calgary.
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew he was rumored to be
$4
going.
million, or $2 million
Yeah.
a year, 2 years. Okay.
Yeah.
You know why?
Oof.
Because Lumberg fucked her.
That's right.
But they did re-sign Kulikov for like a 1.2.
Yeah, 1 point. Yeah,
Something
pennies.
really small.
Pennies,
I mean,
yeah.
come on. That's the deal you got to make, and then not make the mistake to re-sign. Try to re-sign. You couldn't re-sign.
I get that goalies are at a
That's right.
premium, but why would Toronto re-sign Matt Murray? Can anybody answer me that question?
I don't know why they re-signed him the last time. Every year they give him another fucking. Why?
Right. This is your last chance, you. Oh,
I don't get it.
Speaking of
who's it?
which, certain teams' goalie is going to be asking for the maximum amount allowed under
That's what we
cap
hear.
regulations next year.
14% and $12.5 million a year for a goaltender. Holy shit. Okay. That's what makes next year so important. So important. Yeah. Well, I mean, what are you gonna do? Not pay him? You're gonna not pay him? Is it okay? See you later. We'll take fucking Anthony Stolarz.
Hey,
That'll work.
Edison's
it's nothing against him, but I think he's gonna do amazing in Toronto. But Matt Murray, all right, okay, yay, good for you guys. Matt fucking Murray. I was pretty surprised that Martin Natchez didn't move. That Carolina's still holding on to him.
Yeah.
That is somebody I would love the Rangers to get, but listen, it's never gonna happen.
There's another interesting name out there.
Taco and fucking Philip Hedl.
There's another interesting name out there in Winnipeg, and that's Rutger
Ehlers.
No, Rutger McGorty, who's a rookie.
Yeah,
who's not at their the youth development camp. He wasn't even there, and he's been rumored to be available for the right price.
What position does he play?
I'm pretty sure he's a winger. Yeah,
he's a right wing. Oh, sounds great. We'll take him. Bring him on.
I mean, and that's the thing. You're going to get him for the rookie salary.
Yeah.
Left wing.
San Jose is at the cap floor. Anaheim is not.
Oh, okay. That's who it was.
I think the Blackhawks did pretty well. I mean,
they're still going to suck. These aren't our teams.
They're still going to suck. They're still going to suck.
Who cares?
I think they did.
These aren't our teams. Let's move on.
Vancouver
is why the
did well.
This is 3 fucking hours.
Fuck the Flyers. But there are teams right now. I mean, the Caps have a cap hit of $101 million. $100 million.
Doesn't matter.
Does that include still fucking what's his name?
Not one of our teams. Hold on. I have to go to Puckpedia to find out.
No, Cap Friendly is still up. It's going to be here for at least the next week. Yeah, I'm still going to use it because it's still easy.
Yeah, that's without Backstrom 9 million on there, and then they have the dead cap of Kuznetsov for 4 million. But how are they?
They're only $14 million over the cap.
Fuck them.
How is?
You think they can trade Pierre-Luc Dubois? You think they can trade him? No. Well, Oshie, there's a decision on Oshie whether he's going to retire or not. So that's almost $6 million off of your cap.
Well, that's what everyone's saying.
They got maneuvering to do. Yeah.
They said Oshie's not. He's done. That's what we were hearing. That'd be 5 mil, but 52 and 31. That's 83. 1 million here or 2 million. That's 85. Where's the other? It has to be with Backstrom included. It must be including Backstrom's deal amount because
in Cap Friendly, that's LTIR.
I know, but it must be cap. But there's nothing else there. Looking at it, if you look at it, it's
Kuznetsov. They still owe Kuznetsov almost $4 million.
Yeah.
On the buyout.
3. Yeah, but that's not 95. I think they're counting the action stuff right now on the 95. But what's the projected 101 though? How do they get into there? I'm
Yeah,
not seeing it on
I
there.
don't know.
Okay, if you look at preseason LTIR candidate estimates, it says cap space with LTIR candidates is minus 4 million. So they're 4 million over the cap right now. But that's before OJ. Oshie probably retires.
OJ Tushi.
OJ Tushi, who's going to retire. That's the word he's probably gonna retire. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That's 11 forwards signed without Oshie. They have too many defensemen. I don't know what's going on. Unless some of these guys are AHL, they must be. Too many guys. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Okay, again, we're talking about a team that none of us root for. So fuck them.
Yeah, and look, available out there for you is Jacob Vrana. Does that light anybody's fancy?
No.
I had
Tyler
him as
Johnson,
a possible guy on the team for the Isles.
All right, go get him. Who else is out there?
No
I mean,
room.
besides Tarasenko is probably the best.
Tarasenko is the biggest still available.
Without question.
There was, I don't know if you saw this, but there was an email that went out from the Pittsburgh Penguins stating that Tarasenko was a Penguin today. However,
really?
Yeah, but didn't he has not I don't know if that was a obviously mistake, but who knows? Maybe we'll see a Tarasenko with the Penguins, but I don't know. He can go anywhere realistically.
Be an interesting Russian connection there for sure. Look, so it'll be very interesting unless something monumental happens. We will we'll reconvene the whole free agent thing at training camp in September.
Oh, thank God.
Some of the schedules were leaked today. We had one Ranger Islander game in November, and then we don't get another one until February. I mean, I don't think there's anything that can do to satisfy everybody, because you'd rather have, in my opinion, I think you'd rather have those Islander Ranger games toward the end of the season than you would in the beginning of the season. And giving us one in the beginning of the season and then 3 in the second half of the season, I'm all right with that. But it just sucks that we have to wait so long to get.
There's nothing that's gonna make everybody happy.
How about
no? There's not.
Makers
but
just have to say, fuck everybody. We're just gonna make a schedule because you can't please everybody. It's just impossible.
I couldn't be happier with the Rangers' schedule this year. They have no road trips longer than 4 games. None.
Oh my God.
And they only have 2 of those.
I'm not doing it. You're going to do this next year.
Ridiculous.
Next season. I'm not doing this season. The only thing I did want to bring up was they are doing possibly the Frozen Frenzy. 16
100%.
games separated by a half hour each, but they're doing it on a Tuesday. Is that stupid?
Yes. Why wouldn't it be on a Saturday?
Why wouldn't it be on a Saturday?
A Saturday? Yeah.
Yeah.
What? That's really dumb.
Tuesday. Yeah, I don't know. I don't get it. That's my only gripe. I'm not talking about next year's schedule yet. Let's go to Bill.
Rangers open up in Pittsburgh. We talk about. We're absolutely talking about that.
No, we're not. I'm not talking about the fucking schedule. Bill.
Well, listen, a 4:30 game,
Bill,
to kick off the NHL.
Bill.
Bill. Who the Penguins play the Blackhawks at really early? At the beginning of this year? Who played the early game this year?
Bill.
Pretty sure it wasn't 4:30. It wasn't a 4:30 start. I could definitely tell you that. But you got the fucking Blues and the Kraken starting at 4:30 on the 8th of October. Dumb.
Well, technically, that's not the start of the season because the Devils play on the 4th and 5th in Europe. But okay.
That doesn't count. That's not opening night.
You want to talk stupid scheduling?
It's
the
Devils. It's the Devils. Who cares?
They have a preseason game
Make the
scheduled
playoffs.
for October 3rd in New Jersey, and then they open the season October 4th.
Bill,
in Czechia.
Go ahead, Bill. Who gives a fuck? It's the Devils. Bill, go ahead.
All I got to do to change the subject is bring up the Devils.
Now this is the wrong Bill.
Yeah. Wow, with a setup like that, how can I not just have a great session here? Okay. So in this final weekly WTF of the 2023-24 season, I would like to remind you of an extremely important statistic. At the start of the Stanley Cup playoffs and in our inaugural edition of the weekly WTF, I boldly predicted where each of the 16 teams would end up, whether they would win or lose in the Stanley Cup playoffs. I was correct for 14 out of 16 teams, which is a remarkable 87.5% rate of accuracy. And frankly, the two that I got incorrect were because the refs decided they didn't want to make a very obvious goalie interference call when the Panthers beat my Bruins. And if that was reversed, I would have been 100%. Even so, 87.5%, almost unheard of, mostly because it's not a statistic that anybody measures, but it's still really high. And speaking of predictions, I would like to publicly apologize to our own Steven Wojtowicz. Before the Stanley Cup Finals, when, Tom, Nick, and myself correctly predicted that the Florida Panthers would win the Stanley Cup, our very own Steve was the only other outlier that was picking the Edmonton Oilers. And even though technically the three of us were correct and Steve was wrong, I remember Steve saying that the Oilers, were stacked in a different way. So after Florida mostly dominated games 1-3, took a 3-0 series lead, I was so ready to get on a podcast and just like rake Steve over the coals and make fun of him and just like mock him like mercilessly for that terrible pick of the Oilers. But then, the weird thing happened and the Oilers bounced back and they won those 3 games in a row. And they even, in the end of the series, they even outscored Florida by like 5 goals. If you're looking at that goal plus minus thing. So even though Steve was technically incorrect, I feel like his prediction was closer than ours. Cause like the three of us, like not only were picking Florida, we just thought they were going to run away with it. Like we thought it was over. We didn't even like give Edmonton any kind of a chance. It was like, okay, so it was a showcase showdown where Steve missed his bid by $10, but he overbid, and we like won, being like $20,000 below. So I apologize to Steve for thinking he was a bird brain, know nothing Dumbo who didn't know anything about hockey. So I'm sorry, Steve. And then lastly, how about those San Jose Sharks securing tons of prospects? So at the end of last season, they swooped in to sign free agent Colin Graff from Quinnipiac at the tail end of last season. And then they draft the hottest prospect since Connor Bedard in Macklin Celebrini with the first overall pick. They signed Will Smith, and they even picked up like at number 11 a big defenseman, Sam Dickinson from the OHL. So the good news for the Sharks is that they are young and more than likely will be the most talented team in the NHL in like 3 to 5 years. But the bad news is that the bouncy house they are renting for training camp costs like $350 per day. So that's the weekly WTF. Thank you and see you next season.
Well done, Bill.
Excellent. I think the mocking Steve should have went on a little longer. But it was excellent as always.
And I accept your apology. I think is how I would say it.
That's very gracious of you. You're always very gracious. Always very gracious. All right, money talks, Nick.
Super short tonight since we talked about numbers and contracts.
Wait! I got an email from E-Trade saying if I did not mention their sponsorship, they were going to leave the program. Money Talks, Nick, sponsored by E-Trade.
Money, it's a gas. Grab that cash with both hands and make a stash. New plug, give a fuck, G and daydream. Think I'll buy me a hockey team.
Super short session. Since we talked almost extensively this whole time about July the first UFAs and money and contracts. Really interesting point to make. $1.4 billion
Crazy
signed in the last
nuts
2 days in terms of total contract in US dollars, over 228 signings. That is a average over the course of over 32 teams, 7.1 signings per team, which if you're the Rangers and Islanders, you didn't make that. You didn't hit that. Definitely didn't hit that. But it goes to
Well,
show
how much was it? How much was it per team?
7.1. So seven.
Nope.
Seven
Nope.
signings. Yeah.
Nope.
That's on the
Nope,
average.
We didn't.
It goes to show you that having flexibility in your cap in terms of, some guys being the long-term guys, but guys, contracts coming off every year really goes to help keep that flow of players and changing things up a little bit, making the fine tunings of the team. It gives you the ability to do that. Some teams have that ability. Some teams had a lot of holes to fill. Other teams like the Isles did not have that much. Rangers in the same boat. They're in win now mode. I think it's really interesting to see after the years of we've been watching the cap slow not grow much and then get a little bit of a boost after the years of finally the league is starting to make shit tons of money again and things are starting to look up again, and then we look at the amount of money getting thrown around these guys, and damn, it is a huge eye-opening thing to see in a very short period of time. 190 signings in the first day, over $1 billion. It's the first time that's happened in the NHL to be that much money in one day. And many of these signings happened in like the first 2 hours. It was crazy how fast those signings were happening. I couldn't keep up. I was in work mode and I just could not keep up.
The Pesci thing was not even early. It was like a week early.
Yeah, Sam
So,
Carrick was
I
a day
agree.
prior. A day
Yeah.
prior.
Oh no,
And-
the word was out way more than a day prior.
Yeah.
Yeah, the number of signings that happened in the first hour.
Yeah.
But
There's no tampering.
This is where I was going to go with it. Was the whole everybody starts on at noon. That seems to have gone out the window. I mean, before in years prior, sure, but this year, I do not see how it's possible that these guys just all signed so quickly, and it hits the the media that fast. There had to be lots of talking beforehand. There's just no way. It was unreal how fast it all happened. Normally, I am on July 1st. Even when working, I'm trying to like keep an eye on things. It was impossible. It was just so fast and furious. I'm still catching up, and I mean it's been a little over 24 hours. I mean, we're talking, what, I don't know, 36 hours since July, since it started. And I mean, I'm looking at teams and I'm like, I don't even recognize this team anymore. It's kind of hard to recognize and see really the losers and winners, but we're looking at the very, superficial things like top guys signing places. And obviously some teams like Florida who just won and re-signed some other guys, the important players to keep. Those kind of things are really easy to see, but it's hard to see where the smaller signings are really going to make a big difference. Like Toronto, they made two, one of the biggest problems in Toronto, we've said many times, their defense sucks. They just signed OEL, Ekman Larson, and then also they signed Tanev, Christopher Tanev, who's played really, really well last year, but they signed him for like, a Toronto deal. It's like 6 years. He's going to be 40 in that deal. Not for a lot of money, but nevertheless, they hit an exact need that they needed to hit, which is their defense sucks. They did it. They went and got a couple guys to really, shore up that defense. Will it be enough? Hard to say. But those are things that happen. Those little signings that they made a bunch of things happen. Maybe it's something that'll pan out. Maybe it won't. Washington completely overhauled their entire team. I mean, they've made a shit ton of moves and changes. We'll see what happens with those guys. Even with that, they're just trying to make, Ovechkin obviously win a cup. Or not win a cup, get the record, Gretzky record. Will Seattle make any kind of movement with the guys they overpaid for? There's a lot of these little small things that we can't really see until the season starts, and it's hard to really disseminate 100 or 228 signings in 36 hours, but man, it's going to be a really different look to a lot of teams in the start of the year.
According to Sportskeeda.com, important NHL dates, negotiating period of free agency starts a few days prior to July 1st. The official date teams can formally sign UFAs and submit offer sheets to RFAs on July 1. So I don't think it's necessarily tampering. I think you're just allowed to negotiate a couple of days prior. But that's Sportskeeda. I'm not sure how reputable that website.
And for those negotiations to get out there is another thing.
Yeah. Exactamundo. Okay. That's going to bring us to our last Steve Stomach of the year.
Oh, that feels better.
This one's going to bring us to the year of our Lord 2016. As always, Steve Stomach's segment brought to you by Coca-Cola Zero Sugar.
Round here, we're saving calories. Round here, we all look so lean. Round here, we enjoy Coke Zero, but sacrifice flavor, no. Round here, Coke Zero's the way to go.
Stephen, please go to March 15th of 2016. March 15/2016.
March 15th was a Tuesday. Breakfast was a 20-ounce Coke Zero. Lunch was a Chipotle burrito bowl with a Coke Zero fountain. 20 minutes of elliptical. Dinner was leftover chicken with veggies and a can of Coke Zero. And I even enjoyed a little bit of ice cream cake for dessert. Tom, why did you pick Tuesday, March 15th in the year 2016?
Like I knew 2016 was probably not going to yield a pumpernickel bagel.
Sometimes you got to do it.
Yeah, understood. But this story is what we talked about a little bit. We actually stumbled upon this after story that we've got Ohio man versus Florida man. So Florida man faces off against Ohio man. And again, this is 2016. This is a long time ago. So the jig was up back then. Florida, and this happened, this article came around the primaries, apparently. So Florida, whose voters head to the polls today in the presidential primaries, had in recent years become the butt of a particular internet joke or meme known simply as Florida Man. The meme pokes fun at many amusing and bizarre news stories that originate from the Sunshine State, with headlines that begin Florida Man, as in Florida Man gets DUI after nodding off in a Taco Bell drive-thru, or Florida Man finds 9-foot alligator in his backyard swimming pool. What, shouldn't that be through an alligator through a Wendy's drive-thru? Although Florida Man has been found in any number of embarrassing circumstances, he has often battled wildlife, using illicit drugs, or committing crimes. According to the website,
having sex in weird places, right?
Well, of course, absolutely.
Why are we skipping
typically on a beach, but a website, Know Your Mame, which is dedicated to documenting internet phenomena, claims that Florida Man meme began back in 2013, but it may have started.
I'm just going to stop you right here. Isn't it meme?
Sure. Meme, whatever. Meme. Sure. Might have started before that in 2009 when the Associated Press published a collection of memes. Right. There's even a Twitter handle at Florida Man with over 300,000 followers. I'm surprised I'm not following that. Anyway. an analysis of the AP reports covering 2000 to 2015 finds that Ohio, another state voting in the presidential primaries today, may be a more fitting target for the internet's ridicule. During the 16-year period, in fact, Ohio man, who is featured in most headlines, such as Ohio man at 82 accused of flying kite while naked or banging pool floats. Doesn't say that. I've added that.
We knew that
after adjusting for population, the Buckeye State beats out the Sunshine State by a factor of more than 2-1 in headlines.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
15.8 headlines per 1 million residents in Ohio compared to 6.1 in Florida. There you have it. Florida man worse, or Ohio man worse than Florida man.
White trash capital of the world.
100% Ohio, Johnny Hockey, go fuck yourselves.
Yeah. Well,
Sorry,
nice and close to his family.
And that's what happened March 15th, 2016. How about that?
Spectacular.
Ohio man.
2-1.
Unbelievable. 2-1. Unbelievable. You don't get many people fucking pool floats down here. I got to tell you.
No.
It just doesn't happen. Your dick would probably melt as soon as it hit.
They're too bad.
Fucking rubber of the pool float.
They're too bad having sex in the backseat of a car that's on fire.
Well, I did have the Florida man in the Taco Bell drive-thru with his car on fire. That was almost tonight's story. That was a 2011 one. That was almost the story.
Might have gotten you a bagel.
I'll save that. Trust me, this is worth it. Ohio man being worse than Florida man, 1000% worth it.
Can I just touch on something?
Absolutely. Talk more.
Tonight is episode 162.
That's a lot out of episodes.
So
is there a significance to this?
Yeah, that's how many games are in a fucking baseball season.
Wow.
So
it is.
We've been doing this now for 4 years. For 4 years, we've only done enough episodes for one baseball season.
We are undefeated. I'll have you
Still
know.
more entertaining. Way more entertaining than a fucking baseball.
That's
1,000%.
That's
percent.
debatable, man.
1,000%. And listen, it's always a lot of fun doing these with you guys, and I'm gonna miss doing these until September. But look, September is gonna be a lot of fun. There's gonna be excitement for everybody going into this. Well, maybe not for Bill, but for everybody going into the season. We're gonna do a fantasy
live episode. We're gonna do a live episode.
Do a fantasy. We're gonna do. Well, I hope we'll be doing a bunch of live episodes.
Do you want to do a live episode?
Hopefully, we'll be going onto a new platform. This next year, this 24-25 season for the Friends and Rivals podcast is going to be the biggest yet. The biggest yet. This, dare I say, this next season is not going to be about the Devils. It's not going to be about the Islanders or Penguins or even the Rangers. It's going to be about how the Friends and Rivals podcast takes over NHL airwaves. That's what it's going to be about. Who's coming with me? Who's coming with me?
Definitely the fish is coming.
Ohio man's going to come with me. That's for sure. We need to find an Ohio man besides Butcher Grouse. Well, I wonder how he would feel about this.
Would be interesting to get his take.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, so that's going to do it for us for this season. Thanks for everyone, literally one who listened. Don't forget to go on the Twix at friends_rivals. Give us a follow, say hi, drop by. Let us know that you listen. Go on Apple Podcasts. Give us a review. We will read it on the air if you do want us to. That'll be great. While you're there, turn on notifications so you never miss an episode of the Friends and Rivals podcast. Billy, say something, Willie.
Well, Steve kind of let it out of the bag just now, but Tune in tomorrow. We're going to have a daily podcast about baseball, bunts, and cunts. Come on, everybody. Who's coming with me?
I think I like that. Bunts and cunts. I like that. Man, has nobody done that yet?
Is that going to be about the All-American Girls Baseball League?
Oh my God.
Oh yeah. Oh Jesus. Just sing us out, will you please?
Happy trails to you until we meet again. Happy trails to you. Keep smiling.